Hello everyone, Infinite Movie Recaps here. Today I am going to show you an action and thriller movie titled Jack Reacher. There will be spoilers ahead. Now sit back, relax and enjoy. The movie begins with a man driving a white van into a parking garage. He puts a quarter into the parking meter and gets his rifle. He scans the area with his rifle scope. He then takes aim and starts shooting, killing 4 women and a man. The shooter gets into the van and drives off. Shortly after, the cops arrive headed by Detective Emerson and begin a sweep of the crime scene. Emerson finds a shell casing left by the shooter. He also empties the parking meter and gets the quarter the shooter left behind. The prints on the quarter belonged to James Barr, a former US Army sniper. The police then raided Barr's house and arrested him. Emerson also finds the van used for the shootings and equipment used to create custom-made bullets. Barr is interrogated by Emerson and Alex, the district attorney, but he refuses to talk and just writes, "Get Jack Reacher" on a notepad. Reacher is a highly decorated US Army military police officer who left the service 2 years ago. Emerson tells Rodin that Reacher is very elusive. He says they won't find him if he doesn't want to be found. Just then, Alex's secretary informs them that Reacher is in the building and wants to speak to them. Alex and Emerson take Reacher to see Barr, who was unconscious. Barr wasn't placed in protective custody, possibly on purpose, and was savagely beaten while he was being transferred to jail. Reacher asked to see the evidence the state had on Barr, but Alex denies his request. Reacher meets with Helen, who is Barr's attorney, and also Alex's daughter. She works for a firm that believes that her father may have forced innocent suspects to confess in the past, and she wants to make sure Barr has a fair trial. Reacher tells Helen that he doesn't need to see the evidence to know that Barr is guilty. He tells her that Barr joined the military because he needed a legal means to kill. Barr had trained for countless hours but wasn't given authorization to go into active combat. When the itch to kill became unbearable, Barr took his rifle and killed 4 civilian contractors. Reacher investigated the case and Barr confessed. However, the case was buried by the higher-ups because the contractors Barr killed were involved in some very nefarious activities. Helen points out that in Baghdad, Barr confessed to the murders, but in this case he didn't and asked for Reacher. She tells him she wants to know why. After telling her he is uninterested in the case, he changes his mind and offers to assist her if she visits the victims' relatives. Later, Linsky watches Reacher as he inspects the crime scene. It didn't take long for Reacher to start having doubts. He realized that the evidence against Barr was just too good. He believed that an experienced sniper like Barr would not have chosen the parking lot. He would have parked his car on the bridge and had a better angle to shoot his targets before easily escaping. Reacher goes to the station to see the evidence the cops had. He asked Emerson why Barr paid for parking that day. Emerson suggests that Barr could have done it out of habit. That night, Reacher goes to a bar to get something to eat and is approached by a lady named Sandy. She tells him that the bar is too loud and invites him to her car to talk. Reacher simply tells her that he can't afford her. Sandy gets upset and she denies being a prostitute. He reiterates that he can't afford to get involved with her. Suddenly, 5 guys show up, all claiming to be her brothers. The leader of the group, named Jeb, tells Reacher that they are going to beat him up, and Reacher is forced to knock them out one by one with his remarkable fighting skills. The cops arrive immediately and arrest Reacher. Reacher realizes that the entire encounter had been staged and that someone wants him out the picture to stop his investigation. At the station, Reacher tells Helen that the cops were suspiciously too quick to arrive at the scene. He tells her that Jeb and his goons were sent to kill him and that he is being followed. Helen wonders who is behind it all, but neither of them have any idea. After Helen bails him out, she tells him about her findings and reveals the identities of the victims. Reacher then asks Helen to check Barr's credit card details and find out where he hung out. He wanted to know who Barr's friends are. In the next scene, Linsky meets Charlie, who is the real killer. He gives him some money and Reacher's police files. He tells him how Reacher is now investigating the case and how he hired 5 men to kill Reacher, but they were unsuccessful. Linsky tells Charlie that only Jeb could identify him and he has killed Jeb. Hearing this, Charlie wasn't pleased. He tells Linsky that he should have been consulted first before he took any action. Over in the corner, their boss, named the Zek, scolds Linsky. He tells Linsky about his experience in a Siberian prison where he was forced to chew off his own fingers to survive, and orders Linsky to do the same. Linsky starts pleading, but realizes that he will be killed if he doesn't comply. He attempts to bite off his left thumb, but the pain was too much for him to handle, and he gives up. Charlie promptly shoots and kills him. The next day, after seeing Barr's credit card details, Reacher was able to figure out that Barr visited a gun range every Saturday, possibly with a friend. Helen drops Reacher off at the auto parts store where Sandy works. She seemed shocked that he was able to track her down. She tells Reacher that Jeb had paid her $100 and told her that Reacher was a pervert. Reacher is able to get Jeb's address from her. He advises her not to allow guys like Jeb to take advantage of her. He also tells her to leave town for a couple of days. He goes to Jeb's house and meets his mother. He shows her a fake warrant and tells her he wants to search the house, but she is unresponsive. He enters the house and searches the rooms. He sees that Jeb's room is empty and the shower curtain was ripped, which he finds strange. While he is contemplating, two men sneak up on him and hit him with a baseball bat. He is dazed and falls into the tub. The men frantically struggle to get to Reacher. The man with the bat tries to hit Reacher again, but he is able to grab the bat and smashes his head on the wall. He grabs his right eye and uses him to shield himself while he attacks the other guy. He then knocks both men out by repeatedly smashing their heads together. A third man sneaks up on him with a gun, but Reacher disarms him. Reacher asks him where Jeb is, but the guy pleads and tells him he doesn't know. Reacher politely asks to borrow his car, and the guy gives him the keys. While Reacher drives off, he was being watched by Vlad, one of Charlie's associates. Later that night, Reacher tells Helen that Jeb has been murdered. He tells her that he thinks Barr is innocent. Barr was an average shooter, and it would have been impossible for him to make all 5 shots so accurately. It also made no sense why he would pay for parking and conveniently leave his fingerprints and a bullet for the cops to find. Helen initially thinks he is a tad delusional, but he then shows her the car that has been tailing him all day and asks her to run the plate number. She runs the car's registration number, but someone tips off the Zek, who informs Charlie. Helen is shocked that the car is registered to a company named Lebendauer Enterprise. Olene Archer was one of the victims of the shooting, and she was killed because she was in a legal battle with Lebendauer Enterprise, which means she was targeted specifically, and the remaining victims were killed just to confuse the cops. Reacher concludes that Barr probably told a friend about his actions in Baghdad, and that friend, who is the real shooter, must have framed him for the murders. In the next scene, Charlie introduces himself to Sandy and tries to strike up a conversation with her. When she was getting a bit suspicious, Vlad hits her, then Charlie suffocates and kills her. As Reacher is leaving her office, Helen catches up to him and gives him the address of a possible gun range Barr may have frequented. Meanwhile, Emerson had shown up to investigate Sandy's murder. She was dumped at the motel Reacher was staying. Vlad and Charlie drive off when Reacher arrives. He sees the cops and realizes that something is wrong. Emerson screams for him to get out of the car, but he drives off with police hot on his heels. Reacher chases after Charlie and rams into his car. They both split up in a bridge, and Reacher is forced to go against the traffic. With the cops gaining on him and a chopper tracking his movements, he is forced to abandon his car and hide with some people waiting for a bus. A man gives him his cap to help change his appearance, just as the cops converge on his car looking for him. Reacher boards the bus and escapes. He calls Helen and warns her not to trust her father and Emerson, as one of them is working with the Zek and Charlie. The next day, Reacher drives over to the gun range and meets the owner, named Cash. He asks him if Barr had visited his gun range in the past. He denies knowing Barr, but comes clean after Reacher threatens him. Cash shows Reacher the security footage of Barr coming into the gun range with Charlie. He also shows him Barr and Charlie's target results, which he takes in order to lift Charlie's fingerprints. Meanwhile, Helen had pulled Lebendauer Enterprises records that showed their illicit and corrupt practices. She showed the documents to her father and urged him to investigate the company, since he is the district attorney, but he denies her request. She is surprised that he would not act against the company, but then it dawned on her that her father could be in on the conspiracy, just like Reacher suggested, and she promptly leaves his office. When she gets to the elevator, Emerson joins her. She gets an uneasy feeling, and as she hits the emergency button, Emerson tases her, and she is kidnapped by Charlie. Later that day, Reacher calls Helen, but Charlie picks up her phone. Charlie threatens to kill Helen in 1 hour if Reacher doesn't come to his location unarmed. Reacher counters and tells him that he has his picture and prints, and he will take it to the FBI if Helen is hurt. Reacher then takes the address of their meeting point. Helen was being held in a quarry with Emerson, the Zeke, and his goons. Helen asks Emerson why he works for the Zeke, but he tells her he didn't have a choice. The Zeke tells Helen that she should not have involved her father, and that when they are done with her, they would also kill her father. Meanwhile, Reacher enlists the help of Cash. He was expecting a gun, but Cash didn't trust him enough to give him one of his guns, and instead gives him a knife. Reacher gets into a car and drives it in reverse in order to draw enemy fire towards him, giving Cash the opportunity to take out the Zek's men. The car gets stuck and Reacher runs out and hides behind a boulder. He loses his knife, but is able to grab a rock and smash it into Vlad's head, killing him. He picks up his rifle and takes out the other guy. Reacher sneaks up on Charlie and forces him to toss his weapon. Reacher also drops his weapon and engages in hand-to-hand combat with Charlie. They are initially evenly matched until Reacher breaks Charlie's right leg. Charlie gets a knife and attempts to stab Reacher, but he is disarmed, and Reacher breaks his neck and kills him. Back in the trailer, Emerson uses Helen as a shield and tries to shoot Reacher, but Reacher was faster and shoots him dead. Reacher confronts the Zeke and tells Helen to call the police. The Zeke taunts Reacher, telling him that he will not be convicted. He says that Reacher is a homeless drifter wanted for murder, while he is just an old man in the wrong place at the wrong time. Since Reacher had killed all his men, there was no one who could testify against him. Realizing this, Reacher shoots the Zeke in the head. Reacher then tells Helen that he has faith that she and her father will clear his name and Barr's name. Later, Helen interviews Barr with her father as they confirm his innocence. In the final scene, we see Reacher traveling on a bus living a carefree life. Let me know what you think about this movie in the comments below, and if you like my video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.